Well, now we will focus on the request with unknown costs, specifically the pessimistic estimate strategy of a two-dimensional fire queen extends into practical bookkeeping mechanisms, retroactive charging, and refair charging. The retroactive charging, as we mentioned before, there is a virtual time, which is used to calculate the finish times. However, all that are only based on estimates, which can lead to arbitrary unfairness in systems where multiple requests can execute concurrently. Retroactive charging ensures that a tenant is eventually charged for the resources it actually consumed and not just over a period estimate. The system measures the resources usage of each request and reports it back to scheduler upon completion. If a usage is larger than virtual time, we charge the tenant for its access consumptions. If the usage is smaller than virtual time, we refund the tenant for unused resources. To do this, we adjust the tenant's start and finish tag by usage minus virtual time, regardless of the initial estimate. Retroactive charging eventually reconciles the error between the virtual time and the usage, thereby guaranteeing that the tenant will receive its true fair share of resources in the long run. The pessimistic cost estimation. It's important to have a good cost estimator to avoid burst schedulers in the short term. As we know, if the scheduler mistakenly estimates multiple expensive requests to be cheap, then they can concurrently block part of all of the thread pool. Uh, this will cause a burst of service to this tenant, followed by a lower once the scheduler incorporates the true cost and compensates the other tenants for this aggressive location. On the contrary, if the scheduler mistakenly estimates a cheap request to be expensive, then the scheduler might delay the request for longer than normal. However, overestimation does not cause a prolonged thread pool blocking for other tenants. So the pessimistic cost estimation penalizes unpredictable tenants, just treating all the requests as expensive to keep them away from smaller requests. The fair charging, when tenant submits cheap requests for a sustained period of time, two-dimensional fire cleaning extents will be susceptible to underestimation if the tenant transition to expensive requests. Well, the refer charging periodically measures the resource usage of long-running requests and incorporates measurements into the scheduler immediately. It lets us notice the expensive requests quickly and immediately charge the tenant for the access cost while the request is still running. Next section is the evaluation. In this section, the authors evaluated the following goals. That two-dimensional file cleaning provides smooth services to all tenants when request costs are known, despite the presence of expensive requests, and that the two-dimensional file cleaning extent provides smooth service to predictable tenants when request costs are unknown. Despite the presence of unpredictable requests to complete the evaluation, the authors did many experiments. One experiment evaluated file share provided by two-dimensional file query with a workload derived from production trees of area storage. They also simulate the service received by tenants sharing a server of 22 worker threads, each with a capacity 1 million units. We reply 205 uh, 50, randomly chosen tenants of drawn from workload trace of Phaeton servers. As a baseline for evaluation in this and subsequent experiments, we include T1 to T12 described before in in aggregate across all tenants. Request costs for this experiment vary from 250 to 5 million. The result shows on the slide. The service lag means the difference the between the service attendant should have received on the GPS and the actual work done. Uh, Service received means work done measured in 100 mm intervals. Uh, Junior index means instantaneous measure of scheduler fineness across all tenants. And in the right picture, horizontal lines represent worker threads. Field color indicates the running request size and each instant in time. As we can see, two-dimensional file crane would split trip and comparatively expensive requests into separate threads. Well, with file cleaning and worst case file with file cleaning cannot do so well. And compare with two-dimensional file cleaning, the services provided by uh, weighted file cleaning and worst case file weighted file cleaning have large scalar oscillations. And in the left picture, uh, on the weighted file cleaning, this service receives oscillations between 3 seconds and to 3 seconds 7 seconds. Ahead of GPS. The worst case file weighted file cleaning more close match the GPS, and the two-dimensional file cleaning match the GPS at all time. Next time, the next experiment is just like the one before, but the workload becomes increasingly unpredictable. As we can see, when the unpredictable part of the workload increases, all scheduler deteriorate. However, uh, weighted file cleaning extends and the worst case file weighted file cleaning produce large scale oscillation in service, while two-dimensional file cleaning has occasional spikes of service. And the right picture shows how the two-dimensional extend initially partitions requests accurately according the cost, but as more unpredictable tenants and are the partitioning becomes more coarse grained. This three picture shows the box plot the latency distribution for T1 to T12, which visitors highlighting first and 99th percentile latency. Each class of three bus shows the latency distribution shown under weighted file cleaning extends and weighted worst case file weighted file cleaning and two-dimensional file cleaning extends respectively for one tenant in one experiment. And we can see for the baseline load, 0% unpredictable medium and tail latency under weighted file cleaning extends and the two-dimensional file cleaning are comparable. Worst case file weighted file cleaning has similar median latency. However, with three to with uh, 13.3 percentile and 66 percentile unpredictable tenants present latency under weight file cleaning and worst case weighted file cleaning increased nearly uniformly across all tenants to approximately 1 second 99 percentile latency. Well, under two-dimensional fire queening extents, these tenants are significantly less impacted by the unpredictable tenants, but tenants such as T10 do not experience significant latency improvements because it's an example of the expensive and unpredictable tenants that must be isolated from others. The Leptitre's plots the distribution of two-dimensional fire queening extends speed up over weighted fire queening and worst-case weighted fire queening across the experiment. Two-dimensional fire queening extends significantly improve 99th percentile latency for tenants such as T1, whose requests are small and predictable. T1 has a median improvement for 3.698 times over weighted fire queening and 142 times over worst case weighted fire queening. However, two-dimensional fire queening does not improve 99 percentile latency as much for tenants with large or unpredictable requests, such as T1 and T12. The right picture plots the 99 percentile latency across all experiments for T1, comparing two-dimensional fire queening to weighted fire queening extents uh, and worst case weighted fire queening. Two-dimensional fire queening result in worse 99 percentile latency for T1 in 64 of the experiments for weighted fire queening and 47 for worst case weighted fire queening. However, when two-dimensional fire queening did improve latency for T1, it was by significantly larger factors than when latency were worse. Now we can see the picture as predictable workload is expensive requests increase, the quality of service provided by each scheduler decrease, but two-dimensional file queuing does not deteriorate as rapidly as weighted file queuing or worst-case weighted file queuing do. Two-dimensional file queuing does good in many real-world workloads lie between these two extremes. Um, and about estimators. Uh, we also view estimator choice as an important design point for future work in this space to ensure good behavior when over or underestimating request costs. And the limitation, the two-dimensional file queuing also has a limitation. It cannot improve service when the system is underutilized. Inevitably, all worker threads could be servicing expensive requests if no other requests are present. Any subsequent burst of small requests would have to wait for the expensive requests to finish. This behavior occurs under two-dimensional file queuing and all non-primitive schedulers, and it will create a large delay for the small requests. Well, so now our conclusion is though the two-dimensional file queuing, the order proposed in this paper has some limitation that we have talked about before. One is it cannot improve service when the system is underutilized, and it will behave poorly when the workloads with hugely varying requests, costs, and complete unpredictable tenants. But in practice, I mean, for the real world workload, it still can achieve smoother schedulers comparing with the existing solutions.